Oh, recording in progress. Okay. Anybody observe anything about their minds this week?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, go for it,
I was
Esther.
getting irritated with the girl, the bank cashier there. And then I realized I was gonna be a little rude to her. Then Esther, you. And then I like how to say it, breathing, like breathe, yeah. And I was able to reverse that. So
Excellent.
Yeah.
So Esther realized she was starting to get irritated with someone, and using deep breathing or bringing her mind to her breath, she was able to not feed that irritation.
I continued being nice to them.
And she was able to continue being nice. But whatever. See, that's how it works. You know, it's about remembering, oh, I really don't want to be a rude person. Everybody has a bad day, and it doesn't even matter. They can be rude all the time. You know, it's sort of like, well, that's their problem. You know, it's that we don't need to emulate that. There's no reason for us to, you know, just because someone's irritated, to respond rudely, because that only hurts us. We have to live with the consequences of our actions, not their action. You know, and in that moment, what comes up for you in those kind of moments? That you don't deserve this. Yeah.
I thought I was already aware of this and it was gone. But it's,
Oh, yeah. We think, oh, this doesn't happen for me anymore. And then, wow. Oh, you know, I've told you the story where when I was at Plum Village, I'd been there, I think, 2 weeks. And, you know, everything's good. It's a very quiet, peaceful place. You know, oh, I'm so cool. And then 2 nuns left their teacups in the sink, which we're all supposed to wash our own little teacups and put them in the drying rack. And I was enraged. I was beyond irritated. I was just like, how dare they? And that was when it slaps you in the face, like, oh, you know, you're only good when you're in control. Like major signpost. So, yeah. So that's part of the learning, is that these things, even when we, you know, have been fairly successful, we need to be aware that until we realize how reality actually is, we have the seed of irritation, anger, impatience in us. And so if we meet the right conditions, it can arise again. This is why we want to never let go of the habit of looking, you know, looking in our minds so that we can go, oops, don't want to go that direction, you know, and interrupt it, or at least not do anything, not act on that mind. So what do we need to do in order to be persuasive with ourselves that this is something worth putting the effort into? That was certainly a long way around to say something, wasn't it? Anybody follow that question? Yeah. Let me think of the way to say it. So, in order to, first of all, observe what's going on in the mind, and then say we observe something like irritation starting to form, we have to in order to interrupt it, what do we need? That might help, but what do we need? We need, we want to not be that way. And that's an internal thing. It's not blaming the other person. It's saying, I don't want to be irritated. I don't want to be impatient. I don't want to be rude. So we have to persuade ourselves that that's a valuable goal. Otherwise, we won't do it. We'll just keep, you know, well, they deserve it. They think, oh, I deserve this rudeness. You know, so we have to be motivated. So what does that require? Effort, drat. And how do we, how do we develop a motivation that we won't forget in the moment?
Heart awareness with.
How about practice? So this is the point of daily practice, of waking up and going, oh, I don't want to be a jerk today. I'd really like to be patient and gentle spoken and, relaxed. These things, I want to treat others well. I want to remember that matters to me. So we have to train ourselves to think that way, because that's why most of Buddhism is called mind training. We have to train the way we think. We already have habits of mind. We already have habits of how we think. And a lot of them don't go well for us. They're not skillful. They're not useful. They increase our odds of our suffering. So we have to remember how we want to be. And that will help us in those moments where we start getting irritated or impatient or anxious or whatever. And we go, oh, that's right. I don't want to feed this state of mind because this state of mind brings me suffering. And it has nothing to do with what's happening outside of you. Whereas we tend to go first to blaming the other person, the condition, or blaming the condition. We think things like anybody would feel that way. Anybody would respond this way, Yep. Oh, yes, please, Graciela. You haven't unmuted, Graciela. There.
Yeah. I was thinking that, first of all, it feels good to do the right thing for me. I'm learning.
It feels good to what?
To do the right thing, not to say
it
that.
Feels good to do the right thing.
Yeah. For me, what is working seems like I wasn't able to do this before, which is to pause and to notice that I have a choice. I can continue, or I could go into the route of telling this person what she should do or what she didn't think about, or I could choose to be supportive and just listen to her and just validate what is working for her. And that is something I didn't realize before, that I had a choice. And
Okay, so that's yep. Did you want to add something?
No, I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay. So Graciela is pointing out the importance of recognizing that we actually have a choice. It doesn't always feel like that, does it? Some conditions seem to trigger us so quickly that we just feel like, we have to respond in a certain way. Well, that's a lie. All it is a strong habit. Those are the hardest to change. So that's going to take a while. You're going to have to do a lot of persuading yourself that perhaps it's possible to have a choice. Perhaps I don't have to respond this way. Perhaps I'm making myself suffer by responding this way. Perhaps looking outward and, judging everything in a situation by, external things. Perhaps that's not an effective strategy. And when we look at experiences we've had where we've clearly made a choice, something's happened and we've just gone, in our heads, we've just gone, well, I'm not going to, what is the phrase? I'm not going to buy into that, or I'm not going to dignify that with a response. We have choices. And so it's really worthwhile looking, when we notice that we just made a choice. So we can remind ourselves or have proof to ourselves, oh, it's possible to choose something different. And with very difficult things, very strong habits. Like I had a really strong habit of anger, you know. At first I had to just start with, well, you don't have to say anything. You don't have to, roll your eyes and stomp out of a room. You can just restrain yourself. That takes effort and it takes practice, and it takes not being, what's the word? We don't want to be harsh with ourselves. Like every time we make go back to the same behavior, we don't want to sit there going, oh, you're just a bad person, because that's not true. It's just that habit still really strong. But we need to recognize that when we have made that same, habitual response, that it doesn't please us, and not shrug it off like there's nothing I can do, because that's reinforcing the idea that you don't have a choice. You do have a choice. It's just difficult, and it's difficult to recognize in the moment. But there are many situations where we can practice this, where it's pretty easy for us. When it involves a stranger, like the bank teller or something, where we're not invested in how the other person's treating us. So those are great opportunities to just practice. Oh, yeah, that's right. I have a choice. I can be, impatient, irritated, say something rude, or I could not. Could let go of that idea, and then you notice how you feel after that when you walk out of the bank or whatever, and you think, oh, that was good. That was better. It's better than walking out going, I can't believe I just said that out loud in public in this, whatever. So all of these things take persuasiveness within your own mind. You have to look at the habits you have, the response that just habitually arises, and you have to go, is that working for me? Does that add to my suffering? Does it really make me feel better to, whatever, to react that way? Or is it possible that when I'm reacting that way, I'm the one who's suffering? I may be spreading it around, but there's no doubt that I'm the one who's suffering. And then we have to think, well, is it possible to change that? And you might have to think of friends that you've seen change. Or you have to think about yourself and the way you used to act when you were a teenager, and how you don't act that way anymore, and how that's a change. Pausing really helps. Learning how to pause. If you're very quick to respond, very quick with speech or with rolling the eyes or, whatever, you want to practice pausing. Because that also, you have a habit of just jumping right in. And so that is something you have to practice, that it's okay to pause. It's okay to give yourself space to choose something different. Even if that something different is just to keep your mouth shut. I'm sorry. Walking away could be that, or just not saying anything. Just staying in that spot and not doing anything. Because sometimes when we walk away, we're still expressing our anger. Yeah. So you have to know, sometimes we need to do that, but we try to do it with self-respect, like I'm protecting myself and others by doing this. You don't have to say that out loud. You don't walk off in a huff. The other person may think you're walking off in a huff. You can't really control that. But if you say something like, I need to pause this conversation for a minute, can I get back? And can we come back and talk about this later? And that may piss them off, who knows? But again, we're not in control of their response. We're only in control of ours. You know, and we try to do the best to not trigger them back in turn, you know, but we don't always succeed. Because usually when we have, like, especially if we always seem to get into it with a particular person, the Buddha would just say, you have some karma with that person. You've been doing this life after life with this person. They had a different name, they had a different body, but you've got a long habit with, you know, being argumentative with this person. You know, I mean, I've known people where, you know, as soon as they walk in the rooms, I just feel like I should say something insulting, you know, and that somehow they'll deserve that. You know, we're kind of crazy. You know, we just need to accept that our mind's telling us all sorts of garbage, you know. But this is why it's helpful sometimes to think about, the Buddha doesn't just say that we just have these habits from this life, or since our mother said this to us, or our father said this to us. We've had them for life after life after life after life. And that can be a little difficult to get one's mind around. But think about babies, how babies don't come as clean slates. They have personalities. They already have habits. You know, so that can just help you remember that at least you've been doing it since you were a baby. You know. Yes.
What do you think of that? Trauma, there's a lot of trauma. People who've been exposed to trauma are triggered, like they have triggers that are almost, let's say, incapable. Not so much that they're not habits, but that there's like a justification that have trauma. Obviously, there's serious trauma exposed to,
Yeah.
but that people's reactions, whether that big anger, etc., are the byproduct of that, and therefore, you know, they're so ingrained that they can't change.
Okay, so this idea of trauma as a justification for one's behavior, this is what requires compassion, because of course that's true. But we're all wounded. We're all walking around wounded. We've all had circumstances that made us very touchy, and other circumstances where we just lash out immediately because we're scared, or we feel threatened, or, you know, whatever, even though we're not in this moment. But we carry a history of that trauma. Human beings are very, very vulnerable in the sense that, unlike other animals who are, you know, free to roam on their own fairly quickly after birth, humans are not. We take a long time to be able to survive on our own. Guess what the result of that is?
Suffering.
Well, we feel vulnerable. You know, we feel the need to protect ourselves. And so we often act from that place, and we think protection means lashing out, or at least building a fortress. You know? So we're all wounded. And I do think when anybody that you're near is acting badly, the first response that actually makes sense is compassion. They're acting out from a wound. They might not know what that wound is. They may not be conscious of that at all. But people don't act badly just because. We've developed habits because we're vulnerable and we feel frightened and we're trying to protect ourselves. And we respond in the only way that we know how. You know, and I think as a society, obviously, you know, we can't allow certain behaviors to run amok because they wouldn't be safe. You know, it's not safe to the person doing the action. It's not safe for to everybody else. You know, that doesn't mean, this is where it gets really at the heart of the fact that everybody has Buddha potential. We don't throw away a person just because they've done something terrible. We may not allow them to mingle in society because they don't have control over this impulse. But it means that they're not a lost cause. They're not someone who's that we feel is kind of hateful. They do actions that are not tolerable and should not be tolerated. But we don't have to then say that that person is somehow less than human. They're just taking the extreme of our bad habits in this life to a different conclusion because of their circumstances. I mean, when I think about my upbringing and the fact that I was never exposed to weapons, I was never exposed to physical violence in my home, I was never exposed to those kinds of things, but I had anger. And I just imagine if I'd grown up in a different kind of home environment or just place, I mean, just, in a war zone, I would have killed them. There's just no doubt in my mind. I mean, I was angry. So it's about recognizing it's not that there are reasons. That doesn't excuse behavior. It's just that there are reasons and we want to know what the reasons are. And we want to understand people. We want to provide them better conditions. We want to figure out how to work with someone who's been harmed in that way, that they feel that this is the only way they can respond, because it's terribly sad. Would you want that kind of mind? Yeah, Melissa.
It seems like it's gone from what pendulum has swung from where it is in World War I to Vietnam. Post-traumatic stress wasn't recognized. And now there's an awareness and more talk about trauma, which is good in some sense, but we're human, so we do what we do with it.
Yeah, but we could do better.
Yeah.
Because the response isn't, they're just justifying their bad actions. We want to have compassion for their trauma. Because I can't imagine what it's like to grow up in some circumstances. I really just can't imagine. It must be terrible, yeah. Anyway, so, it's really about not caring whether society is justifying it or not, or using it this way. I mean, we can all try to make sure that legislation follows what you think has wisdom in it, not just, idiot compassion, where you're just, like, oh, well, we can't punish anybody because there's a reason for why they do these things. Well, it's not helping them to not guard their behavior. Yeah.
So I also think, though, from what she's speaking to about Tessie, there's a conventional way of trying to move people to compassion. So what's happening in schools is a child's acting out.
Well, I don't care about policy in school. We're not hearing about that. We're talking about our own minds, and, you can have those, I think you should have those conversations about what's going on in school with the appropriate people. I think you should write letters. I think you should vote accordingly. I think you should protest when necessary. I really believe in all that. But that can distract us from the starting point, which is our response, our reaction, So if we respond to some of the things that happen, I mean, like right now, I could just, kill all the people who are running the school system in Florida.
Yeah.
That would be effective, wouldn't it? What would I be teaching students? We need to recognize that this desire to control others is angry. You're not acting the way I want. Change it. We want to recognize our part. According to the Buddha, everything that happens in our little world, we created the cause for. So we want to recognize, what part do I play in this? How this is played out in our society. Do I ever have the response of just wanting to strangle someone who's doing something that I think is wrong? And then the person who does strangle someone because they're not getting what they want or need or however they phrase it. How different am I from them? Not very.
So you were angry, and presumably you were angry in previous lifetimes. Do you think that one of the reasons you're here and now was to work on anger? And
No, it's just karma.
since you conquered it,
I didn't conquer it. Good luck with that thought. It's a nice thought. It's not accurate, but go ahead.
well, I sense there's been a vast improvement.
There's been a vast improvement. That's correct.
So do you think you'll be working on it in your next lifetime?
That all depends on our moment of death. We can, let's not go there. I mean, because that's all about, we are a mixture, aren't we? Buddhism doesn't say it's linear. Oh, whatever we learn in this life will take to the next life. Oh, if that were true, we'd all be enlightened by now. We've had time. We've had beginningless time. It's not linear. So in this life, if you have the conditions like you have, appear to have now, you're born human. That means at the moment of your death, in your previous life, the moment of that death, you ripened a seed that had ethics and generosity and all that stuff in it as its basis, because that's how you get born human. Everybody on this planet, all those people who are, doing these terrible things and justifying it due to trauma, all created the cause to be born human. And then we all have different circumstances, right? That's called completing karma. We're a mixture of things. That's why some of us have, you have the people who have, the Hollywood look, they're fabulously gorgeous. They seem to say permanently young, but yet at the same time, they have fame and they don't have fame. They have money, then they don't have money. They, it's not like life is just easy peasy. You have people who are rulers of countries, nations. That means that, that they have the power of speech. Right? They can convince people, so people trust them. That root of people trusting them is virtuous. How they're using it in this life might not be that way. So we go up and down, we're all over the place. What we want to do is practice hard enough in this life that we're born with these habits in the next life. And also, so that the time of death in this life, we're not just sitting there going, this is unfair. Because that's not going to be a positive seed, right? We want to just, to kind of go, okay, I wonder what the next adventure will be, and may it be something where I can benefit others. So it's not this nice little workbook of activities. It's that we land in a certain situation and then we have to choose again how we're going to respond. And we just keep hoping to practice hard enough to where it becomes, to where from the time we're babies, it's our habit. We've all heard stories about little children who refuse to kill the lice on their heads because they, and they think they see their hair as the home of the lice and that it's wrong to evict them out of their home and stuff like that. That's habit. That's just habit, So we just want to, understand. This is why we really can't judge others. Looking at someone else and you can't read their minds, their lives are a mixture of things. It's not one thing or the other thing. We can't say, oh, because that person ended up, in a war zone, then they must have been horrible, terrible, angry, people in the previous life. No, that's probably not true. But yeah, they probably had been born in a war zone before. They've certainly probably been soldiers and or they've just been, extremely violent with their speech, with their thoughts, And there are all sorts of specific causes, but that's not what this class is about. It's about what we need to do is develop the strong wish to want to respond in kind, gentle, helpful ways. We don't have to make it complicated. You know, if we just have some basic parameters, you know, like, I don't want to do any harm, you know, so in the morning we wake up and think, okay, you know, since speech is obviously an issue for me, you know, I'm always thinking, I want to have kind speech today. And sometimes it works, sometimes it's not so good. So, you know, but just having, then we have a touchstone throughout the day when we're starting to get kind of tired or a little irritated or just over it, whatever, you know, then we can remind ourselves, oh, okay, but that is not a condition for you to be rude, impatient, whatever, because you don't want to be that way. You know? So we have to find something in ourselves to self-motivate so that when that circumstance arises where your habitual energy arises, you know, you don't act on it. And then eventually you can start to notice it before it's taken over. And you can kind of talk yourself down. Yes, Debbie.
I have this, the light blown above my head. And towel washing, and then I saw he was sweating. Trying to get all the buildings done. So like, this is like so important. Yeah, so like observe the other person to
Yeah, put our needs in perspective. We're one little being amongst 7 billion human beings, not to mention all the other beings, you know. So yes, this ability to kind of go, okay, I need this done. You know, it's not like we have necessarily have ridiculous request in life, you know, but to be able to see what's happening for the person you're asking that of, and to see that maybe this would complicate their situation, make their day harder. Maybe it will, you know, blah, 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 blah. You know, I shouldn't judge whether they immediately respond to my need, you know, because I'm not the only person on the planet. And people don't just work for us. But we can really act like that sometimes, you know? And so developing that ability, you know, I mean, haven't most people felt like other people somehow think you work for them? They had no problem coming in, interrupting whatever work you're doing to get you to help them with something else, you know, and it's just, you're always being pulled in many directions. We need to recognize we do that too, you know, so that we can start to, you know, be able to express our needs without making them demands, and also without an expectation that it's first going to happen. Maybe it won't happen at all. You know, doesn't mean you can't ask. It just means, you know, getting angry because you're not getting your way when you want it, you know, is just a mind of suffering. Because the world doesn't, you know, cater to us. And why should it?
I don't understand why all it seems that all people remember very well anything negative, painful that's happened, as opposed to how many beautiful, why don't we start a conversation? Never had a negative experience with you, but many wonderful things. Why don't we start the conversation by giving you compliments, paying attention to me, giving me good responses? I don't,
Part of it, I mean, you know, scientists, neuroscientists say, you know, that part of the reason we tend to go towards the negative is because negative represents danger. And since we're always trying to protect ourselves, we have a tendency to look at, you know, but we don't need that skill so much anymore. You know, we're not living in an environment where every time you turn around, either the water might poison us, the food might poison us, some animal might bite us, you know, we're not living in that kind of society, you know, situation. So we've developed a habit of just looking at others very judgmentally, and we're still focusing on the negative. You know, so we can, you know, rewrite the script. And this sometimes just means, you know, it's in little ways, you know, being able to, when you're driving, to imagine that all the other people have something really important to do, and it's going to be really beneficial to the world. And so you're happy for them to go first and you're happy for them to, you know, whatever. Yeah. It's just about recognizing that what we are thinking negatively about them all is also made up. Both of those stories are made up. You know, which one is better for your own mind and certainly makes you a better driver? You know, anger is not a good place to drive from. So it's just, we want to be practical with ourselves. You know, do you feel better, you know, at the end of the long drive home if you've been angry at everybody on the road? Or do you feel better when you just kind of, you know, like Steve's saying, you know, you think about the best of everybody? You know? What do you think? It's not easy, is it? Yeah. Oh yeah, most trauma is psychological. Yeah. Okay. Can we ever do anything that has a perfect result? No. So we just have to keep checking up. Is what we're doing, you know, benefiting? Is it something that's helping me do less harm? Because we, you know, it's not about choosing our actions based on whether they'll like me, they'll be happy, they'll be blah, blah, blah. It's whether it's, you know, is this going to get me, you know, where I want to go? And where I want to go, we want to really be careful about where we want to go. So, you know, according to the Buddha, if we want to be happy, if we want to feel satisfied, we need to have a meaningful life. And that meaning comes from cherishing others. So they're like, there's a point at which, you know, that we have to get back out there and try to live in harmony, you know, but we do need to protect our minds, our hearts, so that we can do that more consistently. You know, it's like, you know, we have to observe what's going on in our mind, and then we need to take care of that. Oh, I'm feeling threat. Oh, I'm feeling this, feeling that. Is that actually happening in this moment? Does someone else's words actually determine who I am? You know, whatever the thing is. I don't know what you guys run across. I just run across my mind. I'm just always struggling with my mind. So I don't know what kinds of things. But being able to use opportunities, you know, just even noticing, oh, I'm not the only person on the planet. It can be shocking when you start observing your thoughts to recognize how much you were at the center of them. It's kind of, you know, it's not like we're just thinking, I, but when you look, it's amazing how often it's right there in your face. I, me. What about me? What about me? You know, that's sort of the foundation of our suffering. Is that focus on what we want. And it doesn't lead to happiness. It actually leads to more dissatisfaction. When's the last time getting what you wanted gave you a meaningful life? That you remembered even 15 minutes later? You know? Yeah.
Can give you instant satisfaction, but that's going to create more craving for that sensation.
Yeah, this is what we need to watch. So instant satisfaction, instant gratification, you know, what does that do? What did Hernan just say?
It generates oxytocin in our brain so that we want it more.
Oh yeah, let's blame the oxytocin in our brain. It's because we like the oxytocin in our brain. So we can't even really, we love to make it external. Oh, not my fault. It's, hey, it's my brain, No, I'm sorry. It's the way we interpret that. Oh, I like that. I want more. Very few of us are very good at just enjoying that moment and not making it into something, more. Just like, oh, I have to do it again and get exactly that same result, because that doesn't happen very often. I mean, have you ever gone to a restaurant that had this great dish and you just can't wait to have it again, and you have it and it's like, I wonder what that was all about, And it's because it's not just our body responding, it's our mind responding. And so it depends on where our mind was when we had that really great experience. Yes, yes.
I've been trying to do that exercise regarding ice cream. 'Cause I love ice cream.
Yeah.
I've been gaining lots of weight here in US having ice cream. So every time I say I'm gonna buy some, but then it's just instant pleasure. Why am I buying that? Then I answer to myself, because I get happy when I get the ice cream. So it's hard. I don't
Yeah, but then you have to go the next step. And how do you feel after that happiness ends?
feel bad because then I had the ice cream, I gained more weight and I
Okay,
ruined my
so
health.
you're not happy because you had the ice cream. We have to see the whole process. This is why, what did the Buddha call this kind of suffering? Those of you who've studied a little bit.
Change.
That suffering of change. That we have this moment where we taste that ice cream because we've given in to that desire for the ice cream. And it's like, oh, we have quenched that craving for the ice cream. And then it goes away. And then we have the suffering of no ice cream. Or the suffering of too much ice cream. That's my more likely choice too, So we need to understand that if we just keep chasing after these little moments of sensory contentment, happiness, whatever, delight, we'll be seeking forever. Because it doesn't give you anything but a temporary fix. It's like we're totally addicted to those words, fancy, long, so I can't pronounce or spell, oxycodone, whatever. So, all right, scientist, I'm not. But I was a researcher. It's really weird. We are such a mixed bag of stuff. So this is the thing. We need to recognize the whole picture, not just that moment, oh, but that felt good. I mean, what does that sound like? If you really look at, that kind of mind that's going, ooh, that felt good. How old do you sound?
4.
Yeah, okay, 4. Sorry, 4 sounds good. Yeah, you're a kid, and all animals, all your pets. Oh, the sun feels good. Now it's too hot. I'll move to the couch. Or I'll go sleep on the vent. So is that all you want out of your life? That's the thing we have. This is why we have to persuade ourselves that maybe this isn't good enough. This habit of just chasing after these temporary, very brief pleasures, which are mixed in with a lot of sorrow, by the way. And, the sorrow of gaining weight, some sorrows are bigger than others. So, but this is the thing. If we want to feel that sense of, yeah, this is a good year, this is a good day, this is a good hour. If we're just chasing after these little, perks of having a sensory body, it's endless. It's endless. And it's so dissatisfying when you recognize, oh, now that, who cares if I get an iPhone, whatever, what number are we on? 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 9, who cares? After 3, I'm good now. I don't need any other new model, What does that say? Getting a new phone never gave me happiness. The fact that it wears out, the Buddha's talking about the kind of happiness that never wears out. And that comes from a whole different approach to what you accept as happiness. No. Because if happiness is just getting what we want, we're in pretty good circumstances to do that, isn't it? I mean, you know, so why are you here? Is it really good enough to just get what you want? Go ahead, Lee.
So can we take that desire and drive in our meditation and find bliss for a second and we get addicted to that? So then
We don't get addicted to that. We just are addicted to
or we
that.
want more.
Yeah, we always want
So
more. Yeah.
My experience, I wanted more, so I'm striving for, instead of it being ice cream though, it's I'm striving.
It's the same thing.
But turning into something towards. our
No,
life.
no, wrong. Yeah. Addiction is just not a good plan. Because it's just the suffering of craving. Doesn't matter what it is.
Craving meditation, it's not,
Craving meditation is not good.
or meditating.
Enjoying meditation is great.
Med-
Having the habit of meditation is great. There's a difference. When we crave, we have an expectation. You know, I mean, it might be something negative, you know, like when I was starting to meditate, it was like I craved for it to be over. Please, please tell me they're about to end. You know, that's like the only thing I was waiting for in the guided meditation was, and now we'll dedicate. So, yay, you know. So it's about recognizing we want to develop a neutral mind. A mind that's not swayed by sensory experience, that isn't swayed by the feeling of bliss, you know, that just kind of, you know, you can enjoy it while it's happening. There's nothing wrong with that. It's that feeling that you got to have it, or how awful it is when it isn't there, as opposed to just going, you know, nice, not that, you know, it's just like, I remember one time having a meal or after a meal at a retreat, and the food wasn't all that hot. And so this monk was saying how throughout eating the meal, he's going, this food is really terrible, you know, and instead of going to the place of not wanting to eat it, you know, he just observe. We think that, you know, if we don't like something, it has to end. If we like something, it has to continue. And that's all we want out of life. You know? And yet we have a kind of a mind that can be so expansive that we can experience everything and not go on this roller coaster of good and bad all the time. Or we can just be content,
What's the method?
not chasing those cravings. Practice. It's about recognizing what you crave and starting to work on that, recognizing it doesn't lead to happiness. Eating ice cream does not lead to happiness. You know, doesn't mean you should never eat ice cream. It isn't about the ice cream at all. It's about the way we're thinking about these things. You know, I want things to go smoothly. So anybody who gets in the way of that, you know, is an obstacle to my life going smoothly. So I can get angry at them because like, oh, that'll make me feel better. You know, I want to recognize that the way we're thinking is ineffective. It's not true. And start to consider the possibility that maybe if we change the way we think about it, that might help. And the way we act, you know, that saying something or doing something, you know, may benefit us or may not. But to be completely under the control of sensation or under the control over what other people might think, you know, we want to be in control. We want to be able to choose our actions, how we speak. We want to be able to choose how we approach whatever event arises in our lives. so that we're not just pulled along. Because we may not have such great circumstances next time around. So we want a mind that can handle it. Because suffering can end. That's, that's why I like this path. It's like the only path that tells me, by the way, you can have none. It's extremely hard work to get there. You can have no suffering, because suffering is a manifestation of our ignorance, that we just don't understand how things are. What you think, Tyler?
Sorry,
There-
I don't know. I can never unmute myself for some reason. No, I'm fascinated by what you're saying. I thought that there was a distinction between craving or being drawn to a virtuous object, for example.
Yep.
And regular other kinds of craving. I thought there was a distinction. Is that true or that's not true?
Well, it all is in the term of craving and grasping, because it's all a matter of degree, right? So wanting to be enlightened, to want to have everything that you do get you closer to enlightenment. If we take that to the point of craving, it can be a condition for us to hate all the people around us who are keeping us from our virtuous practice of wanting to. So it's like the wanting to be enlightened, because there's no danger there. It's mistaking the means to get there, with, craving that it is easy, craving that you'll have results. That's what can happen with meditation, that you'll have a certain result and then you want to have the same one every time you meditate. That's
I'm sorry to interrupt. I was going to get to that point. I feel like there is a lot of grasping in my own meditation practice, because I feel like I'm supposed to have a certain kind of experience and I never do,
yeah. And actually, that's, you had just that idea is incorrect. It has nothing, eventually you have experiences during meditation, but it may not happen when you're on a cushion. You may be walking around and all of a sudden you kind of go, oh, I'm understanding that in a whole new way, because your mind's always working, so, but and yes, there's not, you can't be attached to wanting to become a Buddha, because you can't exaggerate the good qualities of a Buddha. So if you get, you always go back to the definition. So if attachment is a disturbing state of mind that exaggerates the good qualities of something, you can't be attached to a Buddha, because you can't exaggerate the good qualities of a Buddha. Can you distort your relationship with the path? Of course. Because, hey, we're not enlightened. And we're not even liberated. So our disturbing emotions distort our view. Our ignorance distorts our view, and we can distort anything. And that's okay. That's part of the process. That's why we want to observe, and then notice, oh, I'm still thinking that I'm getting happiness from the ice cream. I'm not noticing the suffering that I'm getting from the ice cream. I'm ignoring that. Yes.
Can I ask a question related to my faith?
Okay, just a second. Did you have something to add, Marianne?
Oh, I can wait.
Okay.
So during my first 10 days of personal course, I had this weird, I was very new to the practice. And one thing I noticed in myself when I was in deep meditation and I was feeling the sensation all body, the thoughts were still coming
Of
and
course.
going. So if I have a pleasant and a positive positive thought, I have like really cool minty. And then if something negative comes up, I was up on fire, and after the meditation I could see pimples all over my face because so while we are into the meditation, deep meditation, where we are going in a free flow form, how do we bring back our attention from that thought to leave that thought right there and move on?
It's practice. You just have to keep leaving it. We have to not care about it arising. See, that's the first mistake we make. So we have something that arises, a distraction arises, and then we grab it. I wish I hadn't had that
And I
thought.
keep thinking even after the session.
You're ruminating. You have the habit of ruminating, which is just rehearsing it. You know, so we need to recognize that we just have to keep letting it go, letting it go. And eventually you'll have a little bit of success with letting it go. But it's going to involve not grabbing, you know, so you grab it and then you go, okay, I need to let go of that now. And you need to, you know, some people do things like put their thoughts in little bubbles and let them float off, you know, because they're very visual and that helps, you know. So, you know, but mostly it's that we just need to discipline ourselves to accept that it's arisen. That's part of it. If we resist the fact that that's happened, that's just becomes part of that story that we're going to, you know, because we're not dealing with letting go. We're just dealing with trying to not have that have happened. It's happened. So too bad. You don't have to worry about that anymore, you know, but it's just about, you know, that it's, you know, deep meditation doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just, you know, it's a, you know, I don't know how you're defining it, but the mind, you know, that we have the habit of conceptual thought, the mind thinks. So we just have to learn how not to listen and bring our mind back to what the actual object is. That's why we have to remember the object. Mindfulness means remembering the object. You know, so if you've got an object that you're supposed to be just focusing on the sensations in the body or something, you have to come back to that. Can't get distracted by some story we've got about this thought that we have. Blah, 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 blah. It takes, I mean, it's, you know, you can be a very experienced meditator and have these things pop up from time to time because you're not liberated yet.
And how do we know that we are taking our mind?
Oh, trust me, you'll know. Well, that's because what does enlightenment mean? Enlightenment means having no negative mind at all and no ignorance. If you have no ignorance, you're going to know. You know, yes, you can lie to yourself, but you know, you weren't close to enlightenment. So what can I tell you? Yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, this is, it's, and it's not like it just, you go along cruisy, you know, and then you're enlightened. I mean, some traditions talk like that, but I think it's mostly Westerners who misunderstand traditions that talk about that, because nobody means that you just go along. You have to do a lot of work with your mind for you to be able to experience reality as it is. You know, I remember a Zen master they had a teaching with His Holiness. It was a 3-day weekend with these two, with a Zen master and His Holiness. And the Zen master says, oh yes, students come to me and go, oh, what about this sudden enlightenment? I was, oh yes, it's possible. Just, you know, come study with me for 20 years. You know, you know, it's just, you know, because it's true that you go from unenlightened to enlightened in a moment. You know, that's true. It's just a whole lot of moments to get to this moment that propels you into this moment. Same with liberation. You know, you have this moment before you have a direct experience of emptiness and eliminate your ignorance. You know, and then the next moment you're having that direct, but you know, it takes a long time to get to that moment before that moment. You know, so it's just, but don't worry, you'll know. Nothing, certainly not worth worrying about. That's an easy one to set aside. So if you have doubt, you're not enlightened.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the point. So you will know. You know, you can be wrong because we can be mentally ill. So, but it's just, yeah, Chase.
What is liberation?
Liberation is when you're freed from cyclic rebirth, this birth after, in this kind of state of suffering. And they're called arhats. Yes, enlightenment's a little further along, and that's when you have omniscience. Okay.
So you have
Omniscience, no ignorance, knowing everything simultaneously all at once. The Buddha knows everything that's happening in every moment because, a liberated mind is not stuck in this body. It pervades everything. A Buddha mind pervades everything because it has no obstacles to anything. An arhat has some obstacles still till they become a Buddha. Yes, Marianne.
A few weeks ago, you mentioned you were talking about somebody who was fisherman, for example. That was the example. And, how much they enjoy it. And I thought about a family member that really loves to fish. And I thought, well, then he's got that mind of killing from previous lifetimes. But as you explained it, if I've got that right, he was really linking it, not so much to killing, but to a previous memory that he enjoyed, maybe going out with his father.
Yeah, so your question?
Can you clarify that? Yeah.
Well, the fact that he's conjoining this act of killing, fishing is an act of killing. If you don't catch anything, it's not an act. And most people, of course, aren't thinking about killing the fish. We even have words like catching fish. We don't talk about the fact that if we catch them, we're killing them, So, and catch and release. Oh, yes, please feel free to hook me with this metal object and then take it out and throw me back. Oh, that's not torture. No. So anyway, I obviously have an opinion about it. So, we want to see it from the other perspective. So someone who loves fishing has got the habit, we can all, because you can't live on this kind of ecosystem without killing. We all kill. We take showers, we kill tons of microorganisms. We, walk on the ground, we're killing things on the ground. You simply cannot live. We've all created the cause for this, So we can't get all, what's the word? Holier than thou, kind of attitude about this, But someone who is practicing something like fishing, when there's no need to fish, you can get food without directly killing, and then also linking it with, oh, this was a shared activity with my father or something, whatever it is, then you're making that, then that really becomes a stronger habit, because then you're born with just this idea fishing's a nice thing to do, so the first time, if you're ever exposed to it again, you'll probably take it up, maybe you'll become a tournament fisher, yeah, who knows, but or someone who makes their living off of fishing. So there you gather thousands and thousands and thousands of fish over your lifetime, killing all of them. So it's just not a good habit to have. But
Well, I know, but I was just trying to clarify in my head, did it come from a previous lifetimes of enjoying the
yes,
kill?
it's well, I don't know whether but it's from discounting the life of the fish.
Okay, so it's not necessarily linked with a particular heartwarming hallmark memory.
It could
feeling.
be, yeah, but there's no question that it's not a reverence for life. It's my life's more important than this fish's life, and so to hell with the fish.
Right.
Yep. And this is what we do. This is why we try to separate ourselves as far as we can from the act of killing. So hunting, not a great plan. Having someone hunt for you is not a great plan, because you're keeping your mind really connected to the act of killing. Buying your food or meat and fish in a supermarket, you are not doing that. So that's an improvement. So you're never thinking about going out and trying to get, kill as many fish as possible, even though you're thinking of it in terms of catch. You're basically saying, what I want to eat is more important than the lives of these fish, and we want to separate our mind as much as possible from that. We can't separate our mind from, the need to kill to exist, because existing means we're killing things, I mean, organic farming is not kind to insects, vegetables, all those, everything that grows, there's some killing involved in it, not the plants, but plants aren't sentient, so it's not the plants, but all the little animals that exist in the soil, exist on the leaves, so every time plants are harvested, lots of killing goes on. But we want to really, and then, if you really want to go the next step, then you really try, there is even a mantra for if you eat meat to, to kind of, clean that up a little bit. But, okay, want to take the next step. You start thinking about, the making prayers for all the animals that are killed to feed people, and just, hoping that they have a good rebirth because they sustain the life of the, so you just try to, we try not to separate, we try not to act like this just because we're human somehow, we're more valuable than the fish. So, yeah.
So is it possible that someone had a major reverence for life, but then during their death, they're reborn and then they start killing fish?
Sure.
It is, you can go back, you can have a reverence one time, you don't have.
Yeah, sure. You can be born in a little village and, that's how people feed themselves. I mean, and and hopefully you won't ever like fishing. But, I mean, yeah, we're up, this is the thing. This is why we have to really work on our minds so that no matter what the conditions we're in, we don't disrespect life. A lot of cultures have a real reverence for the animals and they don't treat killing animals to survive lightly, so it's, maybe you'd create the cause be born there instead. If you want to try to understand karma, you have to become enlightened. You have to have no ignorance because it's vast and we're talking beginningless time. So, yep. Yeah, but kind of frightening, isn't it? Thank goodness you have a mind of bliss and it's not going to worry you. So, and you're not making any of those mistakes anymore. Yeah. Yes, please, Arpita.
Yeah, hi. I put it in chat, so I'll just read my question. When you're on a Buddhist path, is it common for a lot of people in your close circle to desert you because you're talking about your journey and they don't like your journey?
Well, that's the first mistake, is talking about your journey. So, I think it comes back to this, is that obviously sometimes the people we hang out with before we're Buddhists and then after we become Buddhists, we don't have as much in common with. So it may just be natural. Other times it's because we're pushing our beliefs onto others. We have an attitude that's sort of like, oh, you should try this, this is what, and that just gets old. People don't want to hear it. So you have to really look carefully at, has your behavior changed around these friends? And would that might be the condition for them to have deserted you?
Well, actually, it's the opposite. Like, I'll give you an instance. Like, my dad's sister's husband died, and I was telling my father, who hasn't talked to his sister for 35 years, that he should call her out of forgiveness. And I started talking about Buddhism, and he stopped.
And did he ask you for that advice?
No, but
what?
My aunt called me and she was crying on the phone, and I felt really bad that I was trying
but
to.
we can't. But Buddhism is not a solution for everybody.
So now he hasn't talked to me for 2 years, my dad.
Okay, well, there you go. we have to, we have to understand that if someone doesn't ask us for advice,
Yeah.
if someone doesn't express an interest in learning more about Buddhism, talking about it can feel like you're trying to change them. You're trying to convince them that your path is the path and they should think this way. In the fact that you just said, you told him he should call his sister. When we tell people what to do, it can have major consequences if they haven't asked us what to do.
Right.
We might have good intentions. We undoubtedly do have good intentions when trying to ease someone's pain, but they might not find that appealing.
So is there anything I can do here? Because I have been listening to my aunt compassionately because she's not able to talk to my father, and that has really broken her.
You might, I don't know. It just depends. You might be able to reach out to your father and just see if you can just be together, spend time together where you don't open your mouth at all.
No, he's blocked me everywhere.
Okay. This is the tragedy of existence. We cause each other suffering. And it's about being able to keep the door open from our side, so that if their opportunity arises, somebody might walk through the door, but we can't control that, and we make mistakes. So then we can have compassion for ourselves, for the suffering we're experiencing, for losing someone in our life that was important to us to have in our lives. And we can always be sending loving thoughts and prayers for the people we've lost in our lives. And we can try to genuinely regret any harm we may have done with our speech, not intentionally, but just that seems to be the result, and make prayers and things to try to purify that, and not think of, reasons why it shouldn't have turned out like this, because that doesn't really help.
Yeah. I've tried sending him an email and I apologized, and I told him that I will not talk about my aunt, but I would really like him to at least talk to me. But then he blocked me from the email too.
Well, you can just try from time to time and pray for a positive outcome.
Yeah.
But really, always be sending loving thoughts, because being separated from you is probably also a loss for him.
Right.
So, we just, it's just that we can't, we all need to be really wary of advice giving. It's dangerous. It's so, and people don't take it well.
I know. It was just that, it was a moment of death, and I
I
felt
understand.
the aunt has been she's 85 now, and she can't even walk, and she can't even
I'm glad you
think
still
of-
have a relationship with her.
Right. I'm actually trying to keep connections with the whole family, because my father is not talking to anybody from,
Well, yeah, and so all you can do for your father is just keep him in your prayers,
okay.
because it's a loss, and it's just, and so it's just, this is the thing, folks, is that we can do everything right, say exactly the right thing, and have things go badly. It's just the way it is. So if we don't have regrets about how we spoke, then we have nothing to clean up. But we always want to look at these situations with a little bit of, self-examination, thinking, well, did I do anything that would have, pushed someone away, whatever, and then try to, you regret that, and try to, watch your speech in the future. It's just, but we're gonna, it's just, we can't control external things to ourselves. We can only work on our own mind, our own speech, our own actions of body. So it's and sometimes it's just not going to turn out well. And it's our karma is, things that unfold. We've been building the causes for lifetimes. So, who knows why this particular condition ripened in this life. So all we can do is hope, is try to take actions that won't create that condition again. And one of them, would be this, saying prayers for your dad, all those kind of stuff can kind of end that karmic thing with your dad from your side, whatever caused this kind of reaction. But it's just, there's no way to avoid suffering in our lifetime. Samsara is the nature of suffering.
I have a follow-up question to her.
Okay, well, we're out of time. Can you hold it for next time? Okay, all right. So out of respect for your time, because I can talk about Dharma for days. So now, okay, let's take a moment to go back to our motivation, what we thought about at the beginning. Pat ourselves on the back for any success we may have had in following our motivation. Oh, always rejoice that, it occurred to you to do something that might help you control your body, speech, and mind, and to do less harm. That's a wonderful thing to do. And you can rejoice the fact that you didn't do this by yourself. Other people showed up. That's kind of cool too. And then we want to not be greedy with whatever positive things come out of our positive action. And we want these positive things to benefit others. So that's why we recite these verses from Shanti Deva. So it's on page 246 of the prayer book. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid of littles with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope. The people who have the book have to wait on the people who have to wait on the screen to change. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power. May people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain to dispel. And then we want to do the long life prayers for our teachers. That's on 244. So for His Holiness the Dalai Lama. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And for Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you who uphold the seduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjana's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please live long. thank you very much. So hope everybody at home has a good week. Do we have an announcement?
Yes.
Okay, Hope has an announcement.
My name is Hope. I'm the treasurer, have been for 4 or 5 years, somewhere around there. We don't appear to be getting the financial support that we need to maintain the center as it is. The board decided that we will be giving up one of the suites so that we can save money that way. But we will still be running in the red. We have been for quite some time. And the other thing that leaves me sleepless at night is it terrifies me that we might lose Nicole, not because she wants to leave, but because we only pay her $250 a month. And I would hope none of you think that that's sufficient for the time she puts in, or that it's even anywhere close to a living wage. So, and I know we're all in different economic stratuses, whatever they are, and we can all afford only different levels, but try to think of where would you be without the center? And I know it would be a really horrible place, this place saved my life. It's my security blanket and my safety net. So I would hope that you feel the same way and that you will support us if you can. Thank you.
Okay, so it could be hard, all churches are in this boat. Some churches have been around in our culture for a long, long, long time, but people kind of can forget that nobody gives us any money. It's not like the parent organization, if PMT gives us any money, we give them money. We're it. So if you want the center to survive as part of the, part of the community, give what you can. And give whether you're on vacation or not, it's just sort of like, it's like this, if you want it to exist, unfortunately, we need money to do it. So, and of course, Nicole doesn't have to be director for the rest of her life. It's okay for someone else to step up to that role. So, but and the pay, of course, is just a stipend. It's that's just the way that is. So, nobody's expecting you to be able to give her a living wage, or me a living wage. Yeah, I'm sorry. If we can, we can, but then she'd have to work for us full time. But that would be fine. We'd support that. But it's just, but we really, we survive because we have benefactors that help us survive, but benefactors die. It's impermanent, so we need the people who, to do our best to try to support. We really do try to keep our expenses low. So, I'm the one who got the living wage for years, so I don't anymore. I don't have to anymore, so it's just, so anyway, so whatever you can do.
The gift shop, okay? We have some beautiful items in there and they make wonderful, unique gifts. So you can spend your money in there as well.
That's right. That's right. So, but thank you for your time and have a great week. Is that all we need to announce?